And we begin tonight at 6 with breaking news on the east side of Indianapolis.
IMPD right now is investigating a deadly shooting. This is happening near 38th Street and Post Road. And in fact, we have an update. In just the last hour, police provided an update at the scene. That's where Ashton Hackman joins us now with the very latest on what you're learning. Ashton.
Yeah, well, Scott and Anne Marie, IMPD tells us that this originally started as a death investigation here on Indy's east side shortly after 4 this afternoon. And now the investigation is centered around that black Jeep that you see there. And since we heard from IMPD, we've seen the Marion County Coroner's Office and forensics teams are now on site collecting information, taking photographs of some of the evidence. They tell us that when officers arrived to this death investigation earlier this afternoon, officers found a man shot to death inside that black Jeep. There is no suspect in custody at this hour, but they do tell us that this is believed to be an isolated incident. In the meantime, they are giving support to family that has gathered out here that learned of this tragic news this afternoon, and now they're asking for the public to step forward with any information.
We have loved ones that are here on scene who are learning about this, loved ones who are showing up here on scene, learning the unthinkable. And so our IMPD Victim Assistance is also here to assist with that grief process to help provide resources as well.
Again, this is still an ongoing investigation. IMPD tells us they don't think there is a threat to the public. Of course, this is much different than most fatal shooting investigations. This started as a death investigation, and so police are trying to piece together how long before that initial call was made when all of this went down. So again, anyone with information is asked to call IMPD. Of course, you can also call Crime Stoppers and remain anonymous. Anne Marie and Scott.
Yeah, hopefully police will get some leads there. Ashton Hackman at 38th and Post Road, thanks so much. And now to a new partnership between the state of Indiana and Turning Point USA.
That's the conservative student group that was started by Charlie Kirk. He's the political activist assassinated just last year. Emily Longnecker has the latest.
Yeah, the governor commended the work of Turning Point USA, saying the partnership announced today was not about favoritism, but making sure that everyone is able to express his or her own views. Critics pushed back against that and also questioned the partnership announced earlier this week between Turning Point and the Secretary of State's office.
It's going to be an even playing field. I'm about equal opportunity, no bigotry, none of that stuff.
That's how Indiana Governor Mike Braun describes his support for Turning Point USA, setting up more chapters at colleges and schools across Indiana.
We're not saying you've got to do it. We're just saying you're going to have the ability.
According to Turning Point, right now there are 34 chapters at Indiana colleges and 65 high school chapters. In an email to 13 News, Turning Point said there were instances where schools had denied students or created obstacles to students forming chapters. The email said Turning Point had communicated those cases both to the governor and AG's office. We reached out to both offices via email for specifics. A spokesperson for Attorney General Todd Rokita said the AG met with students and is working to address their concerns.
I think we need to know, what are those examples?
Democratic Senate Minority Leader Shelley Yoder says students across Indiana already have the freedom to form clubs, speak their minds, register to vote, and take part in civic life.
This is using the state's power, platform, and credibility to preference one politically ideological agenda over any others.
Thursday's announcement comes on the heels of another one involving Turning Point earlier this week from Secretary of State Diego Morales. Morales announced his office would partner with Turning Point to host voter registration drives on high school campuses and give students up-to-date election information. The initiative will also highlight a state program that allows eligible students to serve as poll workers.
And this is about our side getting better at what the other side has used for decades to outmaneuver us.
But a UIndy political science professor calls the partnership between the Secretary of State and Turning Point problematic.
And it's unfortunate because you do want to see the Secretary of State encouraging voting, but not in a way that's going to favor one ideology over another.
The governor said that this is not about suppressing the other point of view, but making sure that conservative students have a voice. Democratic Senate Minority Leader Shelley Yoder asking how can they not in a state with a Republican supermajority. At the Indiana State House, Emily Longnecker, 13 News.
Tonight, 9 people are charged in connection to a death investigation at the Miami Correctional Facility. The suspects are between the ages of 24 and 42. It's all in connection with the death of 36-year-old Jay Trinidad Ramirez. Investigators say Ramirez was stabbed 13 times in November of 24. The suspects now facing a total of 26 charges that do include murder and battery with a deadly weapon.
Well, let's take a turn to our forecast, which includes some gusty winds that are expected over the course of the next 24 hours. Here's the alerts that are in place. Wind advisories from Indian Points to the south and west. Your gusts could be as high as 50 miles per hour on Friday. We do have high wind warnings to the north and east. That's where we could see winds as high as 60 miles per hour. Just for wind gusts. They're not going to be within severe thunderstorms. This is going to be just kind of the daily gusty, breezy conditions that may top some of those values over 50 miles per hour. The strongest winds currently are to the west. That moves our way by tomorrow morning, and I do think that at tomorrow morning we'll start to see the winds pick up. By late morning into midday, we'll see likely the strongest of the winds with some gusts as high as 45 to maybe 50 miles per hour. Those will stay with us through midday and into the afternoon before we see the winds relax a little bit once we get into the evenings. The evening high temperatures tomorrow are going to be into the mid 50s. Heading into the weekend, we are all over the place. We're going to go from rain and snow mix up into the 70s, a chance of storms, and then there's snow on Monday. There is a lot to walk through in this weekend forecast. I'll show you future track coming up.